Welcome, everybody. I love this topic. I think I say that about every single topic that we talk about, but I do love this topic. The reason why I love this topic, and I want to tell you that right up front, is because topics that tend to resonate with my soul are topics that I believe without us discussing some of the principles we're going to talk about and some of the processes that we talk about and the mindsets that we talk about, I get really passionate about things that I believe create overwhelm for people. And if we can take something that people feel overwhelmed and actually make it very, very practical for them, that formula right there, for some reason, is just a huge passion area of mine. And I do think when we talk about an operations manual, it is a topic that not only does it overwhelm people, but sometimes it's a topic it overwhelms them for years. I've been on teams, and I've talked to teams and worked with teams. They've been talking about putting together an operations manual for 6 years, or they put an operations manual together 6 years ago, and literally it's 6 years out of date. It's just not a current and usable functional tool or document for their team. And the idea of diving back in there and trying to figure out what needs to be updated and what do we need to do, it's just better to pretend like it doesn't exist. But if someone says, it's almost a pride issue. If someone says, you got to document your systems, and you're like, we got it. We totally got it. Okay. If it's not practical and it's not something that people are going to almost every single day, it's an exercise. Okay. It's just an exercise that brings no value to you. So I think a lot of times when we talk about this, I see this as something from, depending on what perspective you're coming from, this is an area that people experience overwhelm. And I'm telling you right now, we got to walk out of this today going, piece cake, no big deal. Okay. So we're going to go there. Hey, Nicole, how you doing?
Good. Sorry, I'm late.
No, it's all good. My friend Nicole is here. I'm super excited about that. So, and Nicole, I know that Nicole is also a Cultivate Wins coach. And Nicole just openly said, oh, I want to come to this webinar because I need to look at this from my own team perspective. Okay. And so we're all coming at this from different points of view, but also for different stages. We just said some people don't have an operations manual and they're trying to figure out where to start. We have other people, they've got an operations manual they created 6 years ago, and it's almost an irrelevant tool at this point. It's not something that they'll actually access and find value in. So let's talk about this. I'm going to do a bunch of screen sharing today. Here's what I want to show you what you guys are going to get. This is not published yet, but it will be after Chrissy edits this webinar down. This is an actual blog. Everything that I'm about to say is already fully outlined for you. The notes are there. Take what notes resonate with your soul, but know this, I've already put the notes down there. Then also in this blog, you're going to notice that there are going to be blue links. So you'll be able to go right to this blog. You'll be able to go right there, and there's going to be the link for the actual webinar. So if you want to rewatch this, you want to actually use this as a team exercise. Well, what you do is you guys actually, as a team, determine each one of your team meetings. You're going to grab 10 minutes of the webinar and just work on that 10 minutes and have a 10-minute discussion on it. And then the following team meeting, you're going to do another 10 minutes. And it's going to be a progression. You don't have to learn this overnight and apply it overnight. Okay. Mini wins. Mini wins are huge. Mini wins are huge. Mini wins are huge. Mini wins are huge. I will say that to the day I die because that's what works for me. Okay. Now, so you can use these things as tools, and it doesn't all have to happen overnight. The next thing that's going to be in here is you're going to see is that I'm going to share a bunch of tools. Some of them are spreadsheets. Some of them are graphics. Every single one of those, you will notice there's links for everything I'm going to do. Every single one of these links, templates, everything is going to be free, okay? And all the graphics that are going to be included in this, you'll be able to click on those graphics and they will open in your own Canva. And it's not going to ask you for your email address or anything else like that. You can open it in your own Canva and then edit it to what's right for your team. But this will help get you started. Okay. So let's start with, if I do start with this document, I have the document in front of me, so I'll take it off of that. Okay. So the situation is this, is when I start, you don't have to take notes on everything I say, but I would say write down a couple key statements or questions. So here is the first question I'm going to ask you to write down and to ask yourself. Start by asking yourself, this sounds almost too logical, but you can go really deep in this. What is your purpose for building out an operations manual? That almost sounds too simple, almost too obvious. So Nicole, I'm going to ask you to dialogue a little bit with me today. I know you were here to take notes and everything, but we're going to play. We're going to have a good time. Okay. So let me ask you this. What are some ideas that you would come up with in response to what is your purpose for building out an operation?
Standardize my service and make sure everybody on my team is doing the exact same thing.
Okay. Give me another.
I think also to make sure that everybody has resources, somewhere to go versus asking another person on the team for help. Exhausting that first. Is there a quick place that they can reference to get their question answered faster and more efficiently?
Okay. So I love both of those. I'll read off a couple that I wrote down. I think that this is a step in the process when we are going to build out an operations manual that we overlook and we almost take for granted. Okay. Because if you can figure out what the purpose, this is important to me. If I can figure out what the purpose of my operations manual, it will actually inform what my operations manual looks like. Okay. It has to serve my purpose. Okay, so think about that. If you're going to build out an operations manual, you got to know what your purpose for the operations manual is. And then while you're building it, that is going to be a filter for you. Is it serving that purpose? So here's 4 purposes that I generally have in my head. And this is not an exhaustive list because we're going to take more time on this, this is not a 3-hour class. Okay, we could come up with a much larger list than this, but here are 4 that are real big to me. The word clarity is huge to me. Huge. Okay. So the first one is I want an operations manual, or one of the purposes for my operations manual is to bring clarity to our why / standards. So if we're going to talk about an operating procedure, a system and an operating procedure, I don't want the agent, the admin, or anybody else to know this is the steps we actually take, any more than I want them to know why we are taking those steps. I want to have value behind the steps, value behind the actual process and systems. So what is our why? What is our standard? So I'm going to use one example only because I like to keep these videos consistent. I get sick of these same examples because I say them all the time, but I want to stay consistent for everybody. So one example of that would be, we have a standard of communication. I can say what the process is that we will not, our system is, we will not leave a message, agents to admin and admin to agents, with anything that closely resembles the phrase, call me. Why? It's not just because now people just feel like there's a restriction on them. That's not as effective as it could be. Now, an agent wants to be on a team because they want leverage from their admin, or they're going to hire an independent TC because they want leverage. Okay, so our 5x5 standards with Cultivate Wins is that we will be scalable, duplicatable, freakishly predictable. Here's the 2, effective and efficient. Effective and efficient. The agent is paying me to be effective and efficient. If he calls me and says, call me, we are playing phone tag back and forth 6 times that day. That's number 1, not effective or efficient. So what's the system and process in place that we have is we always assume that we will call and the other person is not able to answer. So we always assume, it's great if they answer, but we always assume that it's going to be a voicemail. If it's a voicemail, the system and the process, standard of standing operator procedures, can't speak now, is going to be that we will assume it's a voicemail and we can only leave 2 voicemails. One is leave enough actionable information so the other person can actually do something of value for you. Number 2, Leave enough information to end the conversation. Those are the only 2 voicemails that are allowed. Now, if I say that, people feel that that standard operating procedure is a limitation on them versus its power. Our why is what explains that it is powerful, because here's the thing is, we are going to hold our admin up to a standard that they will do nothing unless it is efficient and effective for you. Anything less than that, we could be playing this game at a higher level. So ask yourself, what is the purpose of my operations? So one of them is to not only say what the operating procedure is, but before it starts, to explain why we have this. So that's one area for me. I want to bring clarity on our whys of our standards. Number 2, bring clarity on the process and system. I think that's why most people probably put an operations manual together. What they don't do 6 years later, in that 6 years, they've never updated it as that process has changed. Okay, so it's almost always out of date. Number 2, and the other thing is, it's almost unfindable for a lot of teams. Let's say, can we look at your operating procedures? Can we look at your, and they're like, do you guys know where on the Google Drive that is? Do you guys know where that is? And then we'll find it. I hope none of you can say that this is you, but I'll be surprised if this isn't at least a third of us. You will find it and you go to the Google Drive and go, do you know which one's current? There's like 3 of them in there. Okay. I'm seeing Victoria shake her head. Yeah. Okay. There's like 3 of them. Now, I know one time I was looking for something, not on my team, okay, on a team that I was helping out. We had 8 of the same thing. And revision dates, I would say probably 3 of them had revision dates that were less than a month, meaning everybody's trying to update it, but everybody's updating a different document. How do you put that all together? There were 8 of them and 3 of them have been updated in the last month, okay? So bring clarity to the process and system. Number 3 that I had in here is bring clarity as to who owns. That's all capital letters, owns. Who owns what? So for me, I'm bringing clarity. Let me ask this question. I don't care if you are a team or if you're an independent agent. If you have not heard this question, you have not done enough files, okay? Because there's no way you haven't heard this question. You hear from an agent this question. Hey, by the way, to their TC or to their listing manager. Hey, by the way, do I do this or do you do that? Sometimes somewhere in the file, they're not sure, do I do this or do you do that? You need to bring clarity as to who owns what. Real clarity, okay? I'll have 2 agents on a team and you got one agent that feels like their admin is absolutely knocking it out of the park for them. And you got another admin that feels that their commission split sucks because their admin is really not bringing the value that they thought that they would bring. That person doesn't even have clarity as to what the admin is willing to do for them. So what they are basing and having these emotional and these feelings and the decisions that they are making are not even based on reality. So does your document clearly state who owns it? And you'll see how I do that. I'm going to provide a free tool. Everybody can steal it, edit it, do whatever you want with it after that. The last one that I wrote is to have a single source. This is huge to me. A single source, not 8 copies in a drive. Okay. A single source for all of the resources that you and your team will need. That's going to bring me to where I believe that this is maybe going to be a different operations manual talk than almost every single one that you've talked about, because I'm going to take you back a step and stop thinking about your operations manual. Stop it. We are not here to build an operations manual. What are we here for today? We are here to change the focus. Operations manual, as far as I'm concerned, just the thought of one is overwhelming to me. It's big. It's a major project. And it's an ongoing project as far as I'm concerned. What I want you to do is I want you to put together and think from this point of view. what would an operations directory look like? Stop thinking manual, start thinking, what would a directory look like? Now, that directory will point you to every area of your operations manual. Why is that so different? The directory is what gives me what is the current link that we are all working off of. The directory gives me the current link of the 8 operations manuals that we have, the only one that matters. I want everybody going to the same directory. Okay. Now, here's the other thing that I know that some teams have experienced, because I've been on teams that we've experienced this, is the reason why we can't find the current whatever document operations manual. It's because when it was updated last time, to stop any potential confusion, they renamed it. Nobody can find it. Victoria, I feel like you're experiencing a lot of these. You keep shaking your head like, yep, that's it all day long, pal. Okay. Each one of these, I could literally tell you that every example I've given you is based off of one team I'm thinking of. It's not like one of these things happen. All of these things happen a lot of times. Okay. Here's the other thing. A lot of you are doing a beautiful job now building out not only an operations manual, but a video library that supplements your operations manual, and that has become a huge resource for you. And here's the question I get about that. David, what recommendation would you have for how are you organizing your Loom? Because a lot of us will use Loom, but choose any tool you want, okay? How are you organizing all the videos in your Loom? Are you freaking kidding me? There's not a chance under God's green earth I'm going to go into our Loom and try to find something. No way. And unless it's something I recorded 5 minutes ago, there's not a chance under God's green earth I'm trying to go in there, okay? I mean, I'm way underestimating. I've recorded so many more than 1,000 videos in Loom, it's not even funny. And I've had more than one Loom account, okay? I don't even know how many videos are in my current Loom account, okay? But here's the deal is, here's what it is if I have a video, why isn't the video that it applies to on that directory? I'm not going in. Stop going into the Google Drive for this, Loom for this, this for this, this for this, this for this. I am going to promote to you that you stop thinking about all your different tools. You stop thinking about your operations manual and you put more pressure on building out an operations directory. Now, there's a couple reasons for that. It's one place that has all the current links that matter. That's one reason. Okay. The second reason. Now, some of you will probably be sick of hearing me say this. How many times am I going to say, map out your business, map out your systems, map out your business, map out your systems, map out your business, map out your systems? I'm never going to stop saying it. And when you go ahead and you build this as a directory, you'll see the tool that I'm going to provide to you that you might use, you might not use, but it may inspire you to create something of your own. Is what I'm doing with that tool, with that directory. It's actually mapping out every part of my business for me. So this does multiple things now. It provides a directory. And what happens is when you build out this directory, come on, you need to create the operations manual for every single thing in your directory. Be honest with yourself. You know what? As a team, I don't own everything anyways. I'm going to own this. This person owns these areas of our business. You know what? Let's do this. Chrissy knows this. Chrissy's going through this right now in real time. Okay, we have our Q4 planning. We usually do 3 meetings around that, and ours starts Tuesday, correct, Chrissy? I think our Q4 planning starts Tuesday, and yes. She knows. Okay, so I don't know my own calendar off the top of my head. I live by my Google Calendar. I'd have to look at it, but Chrissy knows. So the deal is Chrissy and I. This is how we do it. This isn't about overwhelm. I don't own every area of my business. We look at that directory and we say for Q4. Chrissy, choose 2 areas within the directory and operations manual or our systems. Choose 2 areas for Q4 that you are going to audit, create, or improve. Guess what Breckheimer is going to do? Breckheimer is going to also take 2 areas of our operations manual via our directory, and there are 2 areas. I did it this quarter, and the 2 I did this quarter, they're so good. They make my life so much better. Okay. They needed to be updated. Okay. But every quarter, what we're doing is once a quarter. We're just looking at this from a very stop the overwhelm. I don't need to go in and audit the entire operations manual. Let's go to the directory. In the directory, it tells me what responsibilities I own, what hats I own. Chrissy knows which one she owns. And Chrissy's going to pick out 2 and share with me in Q4. What are the 2 that are going to, now this is my phrase, you can, whatever is appropriate for you. What 2 areas are going to earn? That's the keyword for me, for my spirit and soul. What are the 2 areas that are going to earn your attention for Q4? Okay, so let's dive into maybe what this looks like a little bit. And I'll just say this too. There's a couple additional points as you look at some of the tools that I'm going to be sharing on the screen here. Number 1, creating and having an operations is not a goal. If you keep thinking that an operations manual or an operations whatever is your goal, to me, I think you're putting yourself in a position of overwhelm. I think you're putting your team in a position of default overwhelm. That's a big, big area and a big, big topic. How do you minimize that? You have the power to get rid of overwhelm. I believe that 9 times out of 10, you may not agree with this statement, but 9 times out of 10, I believe with all my heart that most overwhelm is a choice. And I would say choose a direction that you already know does not put you in overwhelm. Okay, so I'm going to tell you to choose that. The second point is have resources that are freakishly practical is one goal. So what you're going to look at, the reason why I want the directory is because of practicality. If it's not practical, people won't go to it every day. People won't go to it whenever they need it. It's got to be practical. The last thing I'm going to say is this, and then we'll go to the tools, is actually have, I can't stress this one enough. You've already heard what Chrissy and mine is, okay? Have an audit schedule. Know that you will audit your operations manual or build it out. But more importantly, know when it is. It's predictable. It's literally predictable. So for us, we do an audit of our systems and we do an audit of our tools every quarter. That doesn't mean I audit everything in our tools and everything in our systems. That would overwhelm me. We look at what are the hats that each person on the team owns. And then that person who owns that part of the business, they know what systems that they own. Now, look at those systems, look at the operations manual that's associated with that, all the tools that are associated with that, all the documentation that's associated with that, and choose 2 this quarter that we are going to audit. Now, anybody who knows me knows, and you'll see this in the notes too, is we audit everything against 2 things. So I'll just quickly show those right now, and then we're going to move on because everybody's heard this 5,342 times. So here's the deal is we audit everything against, is it scalable? Is it duplicatable, freakishly predictable, effective, and efficient? Period. And ask, is it fully informed and will it create for myself and everybody interact with peace, contentment, and joy? The confusion on joy, it's not supposed to produce joy. Does it acknowledge what has the power in that system to steal our joy? And does it address that? It's about making sure that we're self-aware what steals our joy in a process and making sure that the process takes that into consideration. I can't give someone joy, but I can be aware of what steals their joy and make sure the process takes that into consideration. The last part, is it fully informed by gratitude and compassion? The other thing that we filter through is this. Based on that, we have a system, but is that system designed to achieve a specific standard? So what's the standard? Okay. Then how do we communicate it to those that it's actually affecting and working with and serving? And then I don't want to ever have a system that we don't honor. The amount of people that have time blocks and they blow right through their time blocks and they say, yeah, I've got a time management system. Really? I mean, I didn't honor any of my time blocks today, but okay, so you have a system you don't honor. So I don't really care about it. It's not all about systems. It's about systems that we will and can honor. Okay. So here is a couple tools that we're going to provide. So I want to show you what this looks like in real time for my head. Okay. Now, I want to show you this from a very specific process. If you look at all of this, it looks like a lot. It's so much less than what you think it is. Once I go through it for you, you'll notice is this. I'm going to start with the core, okay, which is this. I believe that we can do everything that we want, but if real estate isn't moving, if we aren't getting leads, moving them through the process and helping them actually get closed and get people paid, none of us have a business, period. Okay, we just don't have a business. So with that, what do? The first couple of tabs here is actually the sales process. So why is that part of my operations manual? Because of this. What we have here is tabs 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, some of these tabs, for some of you say, these don't relate to me. That's okay. Some of these other ones beyond that will, okay? But see the thought process on this. Now, if this relates to your team, perfect. If it doesn't relate to your team, ask yourself this. Do you serve any teams that this would actually relate to? So why do I say that? Because some of you are on teams and it will relate to you because you do have agents on your team. Some of you are independent transaction coordinators and you say, well, this sales process doesn't mean a lot to me. Come on, grow up. Here's the deal is, it means everything to you. The deal is you also have clients that it matters to them. So what you can do, and literally you don't ever have to mention my name. You're going to get free copies of this, and you could actually put together your own little 5 to 10 minute video on, hey, by the way, because you're going to be able to get this spreadsheet and you can actually make a copy of this and you can customize it to them and say, hey, I just wanted to give you this tool to help you start with your operations manual. You know how many TCs at the first of the year always say this? Is anybody thinking about adding any extra additional services to what they do this year? How about figure out what the services that you currently have and can you even do those better? Number 2, is there anything that you're currently doing where you could actually bring more value to them rather than charging them more money or adding additional services? What about what you're doing right now? Could you provide them with a tool that would bring them real value, and they bring them such value and it means so much to them and it helps them so much that they can't stop talking about you to every other agent in the market? Okay. So think about this in a bigger picture, that these are tools that can be used multiple ways. So here's the thing is, how do I look at this? When an agent gets, let's move over to say, when they cultivate a lead, then they make an appointment and then it goes active. I'm just going to move forward in the process a little bit so you can see how this works. So some of this comes down to the fact is what we're doing is we're breaking it down into a task list for the agent. For the agent, when we're preparing the listing, what are all the tasks that we want you to do? Now, for me, here's my verbiage, anybody that's familiar to me. If you're a team owner, a team lead, or a sales manager, if you're going to recruit someone to your team, it is your responsibility. And if you don't do this, I just don't think that your value proposition is very strong to your agents you're trying to recruit, is you have to have in place a guaranteed roadmap of success for the agents you bring on your team. So what's our guaranteed roadmap for success when we prepare a listing? What are you recommending that they do? And please, if you don't even bother screenshotting this is such a garbage list. It's not even funny. I just did that so that it looks like we've got some things in here. Yours, I'll get rid of all this stuff because this is not not what I would recommend that you do, but it's kind of a generalization. So here's the thing is, now, when you do that, notice that it will tell you that each one of these can be a hot link to your operations manual. You can have a link for the training video. You can have a link It is how you would recommend that they time block this. How much time do they spend lead gen? How much time do they spend doing this or that? Here's the other thing. Who owns it? When we first start the process, we know that the agent owns it, agent owns it, agent owns it, agent owns it. All of a sudden, they've got a listing signed. If they're on a team, don't they hand that over to their admin? Well, they might hand the file over to the admin. Does that mean they do nothing? Probably not. There's things that they own, and there's still things that the admin owns. So I can put in here who owns what. Okay, so not only do I have a directory of every single part of our process, I also have a directory of who owns it. I also have a directory if we have, doesn't mean that every single part of this process I'm going to have a video for, but anything I have a video for, there's the Loom link right there. Don't go to our Loom and try to find that video. I guarantee you, we have titled that in a way that we can't even find it. Okay, here's the link. Okay, right there. Okay, I'm big on time blocking. If you are big on time blocking, I would already have mapped out for every role on the team what the ideal, if I have a real estate team, what the ideal suggested time blocks are to lead gen, to do this, to do that. And it would tell them what that is. If we have email templates for them, now, not all these examples have all of these things. If there is an email script or template that we're going to recommend that they use, we store all of our email templates in one area and they can access them right here. They don't have to go look for it. Hey, is that in our text place? Is that in our Google Doc? Oh, no, I think we started putting all of our email templates in Evernote. Ugh, you're killing me here, okay? How many teams have you worked with where you swear that the leader wants to change their tools every time the wind blows? Okay, I've been on those teams. Why? They're techies. They love them. Every time a new tool comes along, they love the new features. They love that this new one has all the features our current does, but it's half the price. We're changing tools constantly, which drives me nuts and I have a huge issue with, but it's still part of reality for many teams. Don't make your people go figure it out and where it is. Put the current link in here. If we have to make phone calls on anything, shouldn't there be a link directly to the scripts? What is, if you want them to use scripts, and how many agents in the morning do script training? They do script training before they do lead gen. Where do they find their scripts? Okay. In the teams that I've been on that are like, hey, do you guys know where the current scripts are? Why are they looking for anything? Nobody should be looking for anything. So this does multiple things now. It tells you what is our process. It's a task list. Okay. Now you'll notice that what I've done on every one of these tools is there's a different process sometimes when you're working with a seller as when you're working with a buyer. So we have an active buyer, we have an active listing. So the top part here says example task list when listings go active. Scroll down. Different color. It's got to be a different color, otherwise my head will explode. I got to know the difference just by color. Okay, it's got to be second grade level easy for me. So example worksheet when the agent has the buyer rep agreement signed. There are still teams, and I won't give my opinion whether I agree with this or disagree with it, but there are still teams that everybody is specialized, meaning you're a buyer's rep. You don't take listings, period. So they may only go down to whatever applies to buyers. You have other teams where you're only listing. And then you have other teams where wherever you get the lead, we don't care. Get out there and get some business. If it's your listing and they want to use you as a buyer agent, you're okay being a buyer's agent. You can do both. We don't care. Okay. So all of their tools, scripts, calendar reminders, everything is linked here. It's a directory with every link that they could need, and it takes them through the Cultivate process. What do you do on a Cultivate process? What do you do to set an appointment? Scheduling the appointment. What happens at the initial appointment? What happens when the contract is signed at the appointment? Okay, blah, 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 blah. Keep going on. Okay, it tells them the entire process. What is that process to me? An operations manual, here's the key word I want everyone to go back to, the word purpose. I think most people think that their operations manual, the purpose of their operations manual is to just document their process and systems. Okay, so I'm going to give you another word, and I'm not saying that that's wrong. I'm saying I have a different vocabulary mindset. My vocabulary and mindset is this: my operations manual needs to serve more purposes than that. So one of the purposes that my operations manual needs to serve is it needs to provide a roadmap to succeed. What is, for that role, what is the roadmap that we are providing to anybody that joins our team? What is the roadmap to success in their role? That roadmap is, what is that for an agent? What does that look like when you get the lead? What does that look like when you're trying to schedule the appointment or you go out on the appointment? What does that look like once you actually get the contract signed and you go under contract? Now, I know a number of people on here because I just quickly looked who was whatever beeping in and signing in. I can see a lot of people in here in the admin role or TC role. I saw a lot of that. There are some agents and team owners on here as well, but I would say over 50% of these people are in some form of the admin role, operations manager, independent TC, that type of thing. So for some of you, you feel like your role doesn't even start until number 4. This is a contract to post-close task list. Is it a task list? Yes. Okay. And then it breaks down the task list. What do we do when we get a new file? These are the tasks. Please, all my TCs, do not screenshot this. You're going to get this anyways, but this is a garbage task list. Okay. It's an example. Not what I would do personally, but it's an example so you can see how I would use this. Second is, after that, for me, I break it down into what do we do during the inspection time. For some states, I also have a separate termite inspection. Okay. Then what do we do during the appraisal and financing? Then what do we do during the pre-close? What do we do during the post-close? Now, here's what I want you to notice. This is very important. This is where the operations manual comes from. So I've also shared what is our task list. Now I want you to see what this directory does. Remember, stop thinking operations manual and start thinking directory. What does this directory really do? And now, because I know I have a lot of admins on this call, now I want to hit this page because this one, I think this will bring it home for you a little bit. Number 1, when I take a look at standards, I think of standards in multiple areas. Okay, remember, we filter everything through the 5x5 and the 4 ingredients of standards. So what are standards that help me determine the system? Sometimes standards are just like our standard is that we're going to get this opening process done in 30 minutes or less. Okay, that's a standard. What's another standard? Another standard might be more a core principle. It's an actual principle, not a time or a technicality. The principle is we look at everything that we have on our list in phases 2 of 5, 3 of 5, 4 of 5, and 6 or 6 of 5, 5 of 5. And what we do is we say, are there any of those that if we actually put a little effort, we could actually get those done in the first phase? Now, this is just the way I work. You may work totally different. My goal is I look at an entire task list and I ask myself, is there anything that's happening in phase 2, 3, 4, or 5 that if I put effort, we could actually do in phase 1? Everything that I can do in phase 1, I'm going to front load my transactions. Now, does that mean I'll spend a little bit more time doing the opening process of my files? Absolutely. Does it mean that I will save crazy amount of times later on in the transaction? You bet I will. Now, for you, yours might not work that way. If you ever worked on a transaction with me in real time, I'll tell you right now, I'm all about do more up front and my efficiencies afterwards is crazy town. Okay. So I'm going to put the standard in is not only do we have a 30-minute standard, but we have standards that we are going to look at anything that can be that can be done up front rather than later. We will do up front. Now look where this is, and I'm going to make this screen much bigger so you can see where I account for that. If you look at this task list here, what is below every single section? Link to standard that is designed to achieve. Okay, so for our opening process, notice this, I have a different purpose for my operations manual than someone else. They think it's just what's our process, what are the tasks, what are these? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to give you the tasks. Then I'm going to put in there a link for this particular system that we've designed, our opening system, what are the standards that we're trying to achieve? Because when I'm training and when we preach, remember, we're talking about team culture here. Team culture. There's no culture that's ever existed on the face of the earth, on the planet, that to be a strong culture doesn't have a unified language. Your language matters, and team unified language is huge. So what we do is, how do we think about this stuff? How do we talk about this stuff? What are our standards? So my standards for, say, communication with when we have communication standards with our buyers and sellers, what would be in this link right here when I get to that part of our directory? When we talk about communication standards with the buyers and sellers, it would explain in that standard our why for the standard, because then that informs our system. So what is that standard for me? Real simply, the fact is National Association of Realtors always runs a report and asks all the buyers and sellers, what was your best part of the experience? What was your worst part of the experience? The worst part is always the same answer every single time, which is lack of communication. So our standard for the system that's broken out in our operations manual, it will tell our team members, our standard is that our system is designed to achieve our standard. What's the standard? The standard is not only that our buyers and sellers will not answer that way, they will never answer that we had lack of communication. They will be incapable. This is a standard I hold, is they will be incapable of honestly answering that they had anything but the best communication they've ever experienced on a transaction. They would be incapable. So what would my system need to look like to achieve that standard? So notice in each one of these sections, I can give the task list. I can say who owns it. In a transaction, that's where it starts to get a little bit, it starts to lean from in the front end, the agents are doing more. In the back end, the admin's doing more. So that's where it's appropriate, who owns what. Now, someone else was building this out the other day and they said, oh, you know what? I actually have a couple other things on our team, the way we work, we have actually a couple other options for that. Perfect. That's what this is. This is a tool that you are going to edit for what's appropriate with your team. It's a directory. So how else do I use this? If I'm Nicole and Nicole makes a new hire, I can actually use this directory literally as my training grounds. This is my training manual as well. Why? I can make a copy, because you can go down here and say duplicate, and I can make a copy, or I can go ahead and copy to a new spreadsheet. I have a new employee. I'm just going to copy this one sheet. And what we're going to do is learn the transaction from contract to post-close process. And I already have 2 columns. So when we get to that point that Nicole and her team member are doing a one-on-one, I want to know, does the trainee feel, do you truly feel that you've got that one? And they may have X'd a couple of these. They think they've got it. Nicole totally agrees. Okay. Now, Nicole also checks these 2. And they check this one. And Nicole's looking at it and going, you know what? I think you believe that you've got that one, but that's the same one that we talked about yesterday, that we actually had 2 errors that came back on those. So I love that you have the confidence that you think that you know it. But they haven't really learned to own anything until both parties have checked off that they truly own that and understand it. Now, sometimes do our admin and our new hires have lack of confidence? Sure they do. It's my job as a leader to help build them up around that. So I've got a new employee and I've checked off, I think you get these 2. And they're like, I don't think I do. And I'm like, you know what? I don't think you're giving yourself enough credit. I think you understand it better than you think you do. You just think that there's more to it that you haven't heard yet. You've literally knocked it out of the park every time. And it's my job to acknowledge them for that. And then eventually we can both check it. So what I'm doing is I'm also able to use this as my 30, 60, 90. Okay. So now I can also have all the videos in here. Now, Here's the last thing I want to give an example on this, because I can go on this like literally for 2 or 3 hours. I just love this geeky spreadsheet stuff, okay? But it's not about spreadsheets. It's about finding a way for you to come up with a directory. Now, for some of you, you think that spreadsheets are Satan's work, and that's fine. You're wrong. I think they're sexy. I love spreadsheets. I think they're great, okay? I love them. I love them. I love them. Okay, but here's the thing is, some of you know that that one of the transaction coordinators that I trained in was a young lady by the name of Rain, and now she works for Open to Close and Andrew Altman, and she's an amazing human being. But when she joined my team, she didn't know transaction management. So what we would do, I'm just going to use any one of these tasks. I might do over a week, maybe a total of 15, 20 minutes of training on one point. But once she gets to that point that she says, I think I get it. I think I get it. I think some of you, again, are creating your own overwhelm. You think you need to create an operations manual. Okay, now I'm saying just focus on the directory. Where else are you creating overwhelm though? I've got like 200 or 300 videos to make. Some of you are just overwhelmed and you're like, I got like 3 dozen videos I need to make. Stop it. Make them in real time. Make them in real time. So Rain and I would be training when she gets to the point that both she and I agree that she understands. Now, when I started doing this with Rain, I had the free Loom, and free Loom wouldn't let you go, I think, over 5 minutes in a video. Okay. And that's why I did free Loom, by the way, because it put a restriction on me. That was perfect. Otherwise, I'll go off for an hour. Okay. I needed someone to put a restriction on me. So restriction was 5 minutes. So what we'd do is once we both agreed that she knew it, we would do a screen share and say, all right, let's go through that step in that process in 5 minutes or less, and we'll record that video in real time. So I'll go through the process, and Rain, I know it too well, so I probably assume some things. So when I'm done going through it in 2 or 3 minutes, or a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever it is on that task, I'm going to turn to you and ask, which makes her nervous when we first started. She's like, I have to be on the video? I'm like, yep. Notice I didn't give her an option. This isn't an optional thing. Okay. Yes, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to simply ask you, Rain, was that okay? Or was there anything else that I forgot? She go, you know what? I loved everything that you did, but you also mentioned this to me in training that was super helpful, that if I couldn't find it there were 3 other places to find it. I could look here, here, and here. Perfect, Rain. Love that. Anything else that we need to get in here? Nope, that's good. And click the Loom link copy, and I paste it right there. Now, what did we do a couple years later? Rain ended up training people in. If Rain needed to make a real video, she learned from some jerk that you just do it in real time and you have that person that you're training right on the video with you, because our process may have changed. So this directory is updated in real time. She'd go, great, let's make a new video on that. She'd record the Loom video. I don't go into Loom and figure out where the old video is and get rid of it and do all that other kind of garbage. All we do, we make the new video and we put a different link in there. Done. Okay. Nothing is overwhelming. Stop thinking that you need to make a library of 40 things, 50 things, 340 things. Just do them in real time as you're doing them. Okay. Don't make this so hard on yourself. Okay. So I'm going to go down here, and I know that we don't have a lot of time left, but here's what we've got. What I've put on this tool and what you will see in that blog that I showed you before, there will be a link to this spreadsheet that you can make a copy of. It's not meant to cover every area of everything under God's green earth. It's to give you some of the most common things. So I believe that the sales process, both for the buy side and the sell side, for both the agents and the admin, I think that's important. And if you are on a team, it should be important. If you're just an independent TC, I'll tell you right now, you just found a way to give a team that you serve a free tool. Okay. And here's what you can do. You can give them that free tool with your task list already put in there if you like that. Some TCs wouldn't do that if their life depended on it. And other TCs, that's one of their value propositions, is that they actually give them copies of the task list and who owns what and everything else like that. I'm not going to tell you which way is right or wrong, different ways of doing business. Okay. But you can pre-fill some of this out. Here's the next thing that's on this: For me, didn't I tell you that I have to know what is my purpose of an operations manual? So the purpose for me is also to give them a roadmap, I said. So what is the other roadmap I give? Whoop. I think I'm feeding back there with someone. Okay. The other roadmap that I believe in giving, and you may delete this part off of your operations manual, but you're not deleting it off of mine. Okay. And that is this. I'm going to give them a roadmap for everything that we just talked about, but then I'm also going to give them a roadmap for what a successful time block, time management strategy would be to knock that role out of the park. I don't do that as much in our coaching business, but I do it a ton when I'm coaching agents and teams. I want the agents to know, what does a successful time blocking and time strategy look like for an agent. I want an operations manager to know what a successful roadmap for time management looks like. I want a TC to know. I want a listings manager to know. Okay. So what we're going to do is I will provide them with the ideal time block. So for a TC on this particular team, Monday at 8. Now I'll put this according to what times we work. Okay. So what are we checking on Monday? What are we checking on Tuesday? What times are we doing those things? Everything else like that. I'm going to give them an actual roadmap. So is that in my operations manual? You bet. So I'm going to provide this one as an example, because you could build something like this out for every role on your team. Okay. Now, some people go, it doesn't make sense. Everybody's a little different. Really? Go tell Gary Keller that. Okay. Go read Gary Keller's book, Millionaire Real Estate Agent. He ain't shy about telling you what your lead gen time is as an agent. He's not like, oh, maybe, I mean, if you want to try this. No, he's telling you exactly what it is. Okay. He believes that it is his job to help tell the agents and tell teams what a successful roadmap looks like to guarantee success. And he's not shy about it. And if you're going to bring people onto your team, I don't care if you're Nicole and you're bringing on a TC, what does success look like when you map it out? By task, by time management, in your scripting, your language, and everything. We're mapping out everything. Next thing. This one, I don't want to spend much time on, because I will tell you that some of you, this will overwhelm you. Okay. Settle down. It's all good. Okay. You don't have to do this in week one, but I have additional operations things that you want to take into consideration. And when I scroll through this, are there a few categories? Yeah, there might be a few. Okay. I can keep going, but I'll just go back to up at the top. You get the idea. There are quite a few. Why? Because I want to, where do we find our org chart? Where do we find our goals, our setting, and our planning? Where do we find what is, so for some of us, what does a one-on-one look like? And do we have, some people actually have one-on-one worksheets, okay, that they come to their one-on-one with their one-on-one sheets filled out. Any resources for their one-on-one. What do we do for team meetings? For us, we provide what is the agenda for a team meeting, before the team meeting, notes after the meeting, if that's appropriate, all that kind of stuff. Okay, where do they find all that stuff? Agent recruiting. What is your active lead generation process system? What is your passive agent onboarding? Okay, now a lot of these, I've only got 3 or 4 lines in here. Some of you are going to expand those out to 15 for that particular category. And some of you, they'll be blank. You don't do it. Okay. So I put in here a bunch of stuff that you should probably consider adding to your operations manual. Okay. Admin onboarding versus agent onboarding, systems and tools development. So for us, that would look like, how often do we audit it? And what does that process look like? And who owns what? And blah, 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 blah. Okay. Client events. For us, we used to like to build out 12 specific client events. Would we do 12 in a year? Are you kidding me? We couldn't afford 12 in a year if our life depended on it. But here's the thing is, we didn't want to have to, each time that we do a client event, reinvent the wheel. So what we do is we used to call them like, I can't remember what we used to call them, boxes. Okay. And so we'd theoretically build this box that had every tool that we needed for that client event. So in here, it would say our movie event. And in there, it would lead us to the manual that would have everything that we needed to take into consideration, every single lead that we would have for the movie theater that we rented out last time. And we always bring a photographer to the movie night. That's another topic altogether, but there is a photographer there and they will take free family photos, so on and so forth. There's a lot of stuff going on, that stuff. But what is that event look like? Then we also do a wreath giveaway. We do it, with Santa and everything. Every single link and resource and what that looks like. Then we'd have a dozen of these. Why? Because we have different seasons. Every once in a while, we may want to rotate a couple of them so it doesn't become repetitive for people. So we would have a whole thing of client events here. And who owns those things? Vendor relations, broker relations, community engagement and relations. We may actually have an actual plan for that. Our plan is we went around in the Twin Cities, we went around to every town that we were doing properties in, and we would build out like a 15-20 minute city tour video where we would show them all the highlights of the city, interview our favorite restaurants, our favorite grocery stores and everything else like that, the owners, and get real community involvement. All those business owners really liked us because they're getting free advertising out of it. Okay, but we had a community plan. What's your community plan? Financials and budgets, where all the links and documents and what your process is. That you get the idea. I can keep going on and on and on here. Okay, this is a directory that they go to one place to find everything. Now, 30, 60, 90, there's tools in there for that. What we used to do is we used to provide a resource of all the links that we suggested that the agents have access to, stuff like that. And then from there would be, and this will be updated when you guys get this tool next week when the video goes live, is what we do is we have little videos, how to use this tool. Okay, just how to use the tool. Okay, if you're looking for this, go here. If you're looking for this, go here. If you're looking for this, go here. Okay, so I am done. But here's what I wanted to share with you is that the main focus for all of this, do what it takes because it's a choice. And I don't think people say that loud enough, or maybe are even aware of it. Overwhelm, not always, but I will tell you more often than we give it credit for. Overwhelm is a choice. It's an absolute choice, which means if it is a choice, you have the ability to choose not to move forward in overwhelm. You can actually do something, you can break it down, you can look at it different, you can get help, whatever it is. And I'm telling you right now that the average person that I talk to, when we talk about operations manual, they feel and express overwhelm. And quite frankly, and I don't know that everybody will agree with this, but hopefully you know me well enough to know that I'm saying it from the right heart, that this really bothers me. I think that a lot of people's self-image and mental health gets tanked by stuff like this. It hits people harder than we give it credit for. We have to do what it takes to understand what has the opportunity to steal someone's joy. Okay. And this can steal someone's joy. Just thinking of this from such a big picture that they're just overwhelmed. So what I'm going to suggest to you for homework, okay, Chrissy's going to do a beautiful job editing this. Nobody wants to see me edit any of this stuff together. I'm no good at it. I've certainly done it. I'm no good at it and I don't enjoy it. Okay. Chrissy will edit this all together. And then what she will do is she'll get that up on YouTube, and right in the YouTube link will be a link to that blog that we just talked about that has all the notes, resources, links for spreadsheets. If you don't find it on YouTube and you find the blog instead, obviously we'll be sharing it in the groups. In the blog, we'll have all the notes and the link to the video if you need to rewatch this. So my goal for you is this: change your mindset in between now and when this gets posted, I'm assuming by next Friday, by Chrissy, is what would I have on my operations directory? Think about a directory, because now you're going to get a tool and you're going to start building out your directory. Second homework: when you think about what you want in that directory and you have the tool to put it in there. Now, some of you, I'm saying this homework now because some of you will go, I wouldn't use Breckheimer's directory if my life depended on it. That thing, seriously, what is wrong with that dude? Okay, I don't care. Okay. But if you're going to come up with a directory of your own, list out what you want in your directory. And the second homework is this: mini wins. Mini wins. Look at the directory that you started to build out, and trust me, you will add to that directory as you start to build out. Then go, oh, we forgot this, forgot this, forgot this. Okay. Just put down what you think you want in that directory and need in that directory right now, and ask yourself this: mini wins. What are the 2 things that are going to earn my attention for Q4? And just focus on building those 2 things out. Now, the beautiful thing is, which will be the last part of this homework, is to recognize that some of you are working alone. Period. It is you. You are the whole team. Okay. Don't overwhelm yourself. Focus on the directory and focus on the 2 things that are going to earn your attention for Q4. A couple of you, though, are on a team. You're blessed to be on a team, and you don't own every hat on your team. You don't own every hat. That would be part of the team meeting, is when you build out that directory, who owns what hats. And part of Q4 goal planning is each person is going to choose the 2 areas that they're going to put a little time and attention on. The 2 areas in those directories that they will put in the links, they will put in the process, they will build that part of the operations manual out. And all I want them to do is think about the 2 areas. Now, if you've got a team and you got 6 different people that wear hats, 6 times 2 is 12. If you had a directory and 12 areas built out, even if they're just drafts, number 1, that's not overwhelming. Number 2, isn't that a better place to be than where you are today? The only thing that would differ for some of you already have an operations manual. So then I would say this: look at your operations manual and still look at it and say, we're going to audit it each quarter. So now we're in the 4th quarter. Who owns what? Everybody pick 2 areas of the operations manual, audit those 2 sections, and we'll talk about it on our team meetings and our one-on-ones, and tell us what you think needs to change and where we're going to upgrade it and everything else like that. Stop the overwhelm. Just knock it off. It's not healthy for you. It's not fair to you. You can do better than that. We can all do better than that. Choose not to accept the overwhelm, because I do think it's a choice. Was this helpful? I hope. All right. Awesome. Last person I'm going to pull out. I pulled out Nicole a few times. Victoria, I want you to unmute if you can.
Yeah, I don't know. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay, I've had trouble with it, so. Okay.
All right. So I want you to close this out here.
Okay.
Did any of this help, connect, resonate? And if so, what was your takeaway from this?
Oh my gosh, I have so many notes. I was rapidly typing. It's the English teacher in me, I think.
Okay.
I think just what you closed with is huge, that not to be overwhelmed. I am on a team, but I inherited a bit of a mess, and I'm trying to fix it and create, not necessarily create new systems, but make the ones that I have better, like you were saying earlier.
Yeah.
So that was a huge part of it, I think. And then the other thing was to, along with that, you said honor your systems. And so it's not that we necessarily need new ones. We just need to do what we do better.
Yeah.
So I'm all about my agents. That's the reason I get up every day, is to help my agents, and I get great joy from that. So I want to do what's going to help them.
Yeah. So I would say that one of the graphics in there, that graphic that shows the 4 ingredients to a system, that is one that, based on the last thing that you just said about the honor, to me is the key for me anyways, because when I look at a system, I think people have systems and they say we either honor them or don't honor them. I think it's not, that's only a 2-part ingredient. Okay. To me, there are 4 ingredients. So if I have a system, I'm going to forget about the honor for a moment. I'm actually going to go backwards and say, is this system designed to serve a standard? What is this system designed to achieve?
Right.
Okay, what is the specifically, what is the standard that this system is designed to achieve?
And that actually makes a lot of sense to me, because as a former teacher, I'm starting today. This is where I need them to be.
Yes.
back that up so that I can build the proper steps.
Work backwards,
Yeah.
then go to, and then here's the key question that I would be asking if I was in your seat. After I figured out what the system is and what it's trying to achieve, okay, what is the standard it is designed to achieve? Then I would ask this. Not only will we honor it, is the way that the system is set up, can we even honor it? I think sometimes we have systems that they're ideal. It would be ideal if everybody was able to honor it, but we've set them up in a way that it's not only that they won't honor it, sometimes we can't honor it.
Sure.
I'm just going to tell you right now, some of the standards I've got is around time blocking and everything. I think time blocking is a learned skill. So if I had systems, there's a bunch of people that wouldn't be able to honor it because that's not a skill set that we've helped them to grow into. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
So I think it's real valid when we look at our systems and we say we're honoring it, we're not honoring it. I think that we're missing a question. Do we have systems, not only that we will honor, do we have systems designed so that we can honor them? I don't know that every time that we have systems that, you hate to say we got to bring them down to the lowest common denominator. Come on, let's just be honest. If we want someone to honor it, it's got to be at a level that they're even capable of honoring it. And if they're not capable, what have we put in place? What roadmap have we put in place that helps build their skill set so they can honor it? And what does that timeline look like? I hope some of that helps. And I wanted to get your read on some of this as well. I hope this was helpful to everyone. Chrissy is amazing and she'll have this up next Friday. Okay. All right, everyone have a great day.